Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ernie Alima, and in this video, we'll be going over topic 2 of AQA A-level French, which is the cyber-société or la cyber-société. And before we go into the video, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel to see more content. So under the topic of the cyber-société, there are 3 subtopics. The first being qui sont les cybernauts, comment la technologie facilite la vie quotidienne, quel danger la cyber-société pose-t-elle? Starting off with the first subtopic, which is qui sont les cybernauts, we have a warm-up. So the warm-up activity, like my previous video, is to pause the video and describe the photo that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. Describe it in French, and in your description, include some opinions, include 3 different time frames, so past, present, future, and then include a negative. So not just ne pas, but you want to include ne jamais, ne rien, etc. And once you've done that, there are 2 questions underneath. So, quels sont, selon vous, les effets positifs et négatifs de l'utilisation excessive des écrans sur la santé mentale des jeunes? So, what are the positive and negative effects of excessive screen usage on young people's mental health? And then, quelle différence peut-on observer entre les générations dans leur utilisation d'Internet et des nouvelles technologies? So what differences can we observe between the generations in their usage of internet and new technologies? So give the video a pause and try out this warm-up. Please give it a go. And once you've done that, we can go over some suggested answers for the 2 questions. Here is a suggested answer to the first question, which was the positive and negative effects of excessive screen use on young people's mental health. So, les écrans offrent un accès illimité à l'information et à des ressources éducatives, ce qui favorise leur développement intellectuel. Ils permettent également de maintenir des liens sociaux à distance grâce aux réseaux sociaux, réduisant ainsi le sentiment d'isolement. Cependant, une utilisation prolongée peut entraîner des troubles du sommeil, souvent liés à l'exposition à la lumière bleue. De plus, les réseaux sociaux favorisent des comparaisons incessantes avec les autres, ce qui peut nuire à l'estime de soi et augmenter l'anxiété. Enfin, malgré leur rôle dans la connexion virtuelle, les écrans peuvent limiter les interactions réelles essentielles pour un épanouissement social. Ainsi, bien que les écrans soient des outils puissants, leur utilisation excessive nécessite une gestion équilibrée. So we've just gone over some suggested answers, and I've also put down some keywords at the bottom of the screen. These words are essentially the words that I thought that I wasn't too sure on when I found this answer, and I also thought perhaps some people wouldn't know. And I just want to go over some strategies of dealing with words that you don't know in an exam. So the 4 words I've got here. For the first one, we've got illimité. So maybe if you don't know what that is, you can just think, you can see the word limité, which is limited, and then illimité, you could kind of think unlimited. And then for incessant, if you're not sure, it translates here as constant, but you can see cessant in that word. So we know that cesser is to kind of cease. So in there you've got not ceasing, not stopping, which is similar to constant. And then at the end you've got these 2 words here. They don't actually, for ainsi, it doesn't really add to the sentence. So when you see a word like that and you're unsure, just look at the rest of the sentence because you'll probably be able to find out what's going on. And then finally, for nouer à, the reason I put that one down is just because as a word, it's always nouer à. So if you're when you're using the word, the verb nouer, it's nouer à when you're talking about harming something. So yeah, the reason I put those down is just so you can see just finding strategies to deal with vocabulary that you are unsure about. And then I've also highlighted at the bottom Bianca and soit because that is a good example of the subjunctive. Now here's the answer to the second question, which is the differences between generations in their usage of internet and new technologies. So I'm going to read out this passage But it would also be good for you to pause the video and try reading it out, because it's good to practice speaking French and getting your pronunciation correct. Um, I'm not a native French speaker, so there may be some slight errors in how I pronounce words, but I'm trying my best. I would definitely give trying this paragraph a go, because I've tried it and it's actually quite difficult. There are some words where you need to be careful. So I'll give it a go, and I would also like you to pause the video, give it a go too, just so you can practice speaking out loud. So, les jeunes générations ont grandi avec les nouvelles technologies et les utilisent de manière intuitive. Ils privilégient les réseaux sociaux, les applications de messagerie instantanée et les plateformes de streaming. Pour eux, Internet est un outil quotidien, non seulement pour le divertissement, mais aussi pour l'éducation et la communication. En revanche, les générations plus âgées, bien qu'ayant adopté Internet plus tard, l'utilisent de manière plus pragmatique. Elles ont tendance à privilégier les courriels, les recherches sur des sites d'information ou l'utilisation de services en ligne comme la banque ou les achats. Leur adoption de réseaux sociaux a également augmenté ces dernières années, souvent pour rester connectés avec leurs proches. We are now moving into the content of the section Qui sont les cybernauts? I'm going to go over the definition and origins of the term, the different types, the typical profile of a cybernaut, why people become cybernauts, the impact of cybernauts on society, and some challenges of cybernauts. So starting off with the definition and the origin of the term. A cybernaut is a person who uses the internet, essentially. So someone who uses the internet for any purpose, to explore, to learn, or just to interact with the digital world. It comes from cyber, which means something related to the internet or digital technologies, and then naut comes from Greek, and it means a navigator. So I think astronaut. So when we look at the different types of cybernauts, we have occasional users, so people who use the internet for simple tasks like sending emails, conducting searches, or checking social media. We have intensive users, so people who are maybe gamers or influencers, or maybe just technology enthusiasts. But then we've also got people such as cyber activists, so people can use the internet to advocate for causes or share political opinions, especially on social media. Finally, we have content creators, so people who produce videos, articles, blogs, or podcasts. Looking at the typical profile of a cybernaut, there's a lot of diversity when it comes to this. So anyone can be a cybernaut, essentially, if you have access to the internet. You count as a cybernaut. You can be young, so you might use the internet for mainly social media, studies, or gaming. If you're an adult, you may use it more for work or shopping, or just managing your daily life as an adult. Finally, if you're a senior, une personne âgée, you might use the internet for staying connected with your family, or you may just start to use social media, or in some rare cases, you may start to game on the internet, maybe. Why do people become cybernauts? Well, there are many reasons. We could talk about having access to information, because the internet is a very good tool for that. Talk about communication, so social media, emails, messaging. Entertainment, so we've got streaming, TV shows, gaming, music, and then perhaps work and commerce. So people working a lot more online now. So a lot more people are using the internet a lot more. What impact do cybernauts have on society? There are some positives and some negatives. So sharing knowledge and information is definitely a positive. You can create online communities, and the negatives, though, there's a risk of addiction, cyberbullying, and privacy and security issues. If there are lots of cybernauts online, there's a greater risk of those things happening. Finally, some final issues with cybernauts is, like I mentioned before, digital addiction, so being addicted to games or social media, cyber attacks, protecting your personal data. Finally, there's a digital divide, which is the gap between those with internet access and those without. So in France, a large proportion of people would have access to internet. However, in the rest of the French-speaking world, especially in some African countries that may not be the case, and we'll look at that in a second. So some questions when you're thinking about this: does the internet have more positive or negative effects on cybernauts? Should young people be better educated about the dangers of the internet? You can give those questions some reflection, but I'm going to move on to the next part with some statistics. So I've gone on to study a 2023 study. I've put the link in the description so you can look at the whole section. And it's just essentially on the usage of the internet by French people. So we can see 9 out of 10 French people are internautes or cybernauts, it's a similar thing. And 82% of people older than 12 se connectent chaque jour à Internet dans l'Hexagone. So we've got a large majority of people go into the internet every day. And we see here l'Hexagone. That's just another word for France, if you didn't know, due to its hexagonal shape. That is something that does come up sometimes in exams, so just be aware of that. 87% of French people, so 87% des Français, sont équipés d'un smartphone. Il reste l'équipement le plus souvent utilisé pour se connecter. So smartphones are staying the most, remain the most used way of connecting. For 8 out of 10 people, the internet is important to stay integrated in society. And then we have 63% of people in the survey considering it like a tool that helps which helps their daily life. Now, notice here where sometimes you'll see internet as a word, but then you'll sometimes see it as le internet. You see l'internet and you just see internet on its own. It can actually be both. I'm not entirely sure why, but you may see internet without the le or the la, but that is grammatically correct. Probably should have a capital letter though. Finally, internet est également beaucoup utilisé pour participer à la vie associative, according to 55% of people who were asked, which is quite significant, and you can talk about that if you get a question about les associations later in your studies. Now, we have some downsides. Unfortunately, for a quarter of the population, there's a feeling of not being able to master these online tools. We have some people experiencing difficulty connecting to the internet and just using software in general. We've also got more scams and bullying online. We can see 21% of French people have been victims of scams or fraud online, and there's lots of negative effects, downsides to the internet, which is why it's important to stay careful. Of course, this isn't unique to France. This is an experience of most of the world, but it's still good to have some real statistics just in case. Of course, it's nice to include some statistics on places that are not France, but are French speaking, as you can definitely talk about these in your speaking exams, and you will get content on these in your reading and listening exams. So, ailleurs dans le monde francophone, in terms of, I've got 2 pieces of statistics, 2 pieces of data in relation to internet usage. We can see that in Senegal, there were 10.7 million internet users at the start of 2024, and about 60% of people had access to the internet, according to that study. And then we can also see here that 21 of the 26 Francophone African countries have shut down the internet or limited online content at least once since 2017, which is quite interesting because it shows another side of internet access. And it's definitely a unique point that you could talk about in an exam, in a speaking exam, just to highlight the differences between France and non-French, French-speaking countries. I've now got some translations on the next 2 slides, French to English and then English to French. For the French to English translation, well, for both translations actually, you can either write it out or you can just translate in your head. So give the video a pause and try this translation. It's not meant to be easy, so do keep a note of words that you're not sure about. That would just help you to improve your translation skills. And now here's the English to French translation. Again, if you're going to translate this in your head, think about agreements, because those are things that you can say out loud, but when it's written, it's slightly different. So if there's an E or an S at the end of a word, for example, you wouldn't see that when you're speaking or talking in your head. So again, give the video a pause and try and translate this. I'll have some answers in the comment section, in the description of this video, just so you can see a suggested answer to translating these passages. Moving on to comment la technologie facilite la vie quotidienne, so how technology makes daily life easier. I'm just going to zoom over these because most of it is common sense, and it's similar in France and to the UK or the majority of Western countries. So France has a high rate of social media usage, and platforms like Instagram and TikTok are widely used, especially among younger generations. Equally, we have WhatsApp and Signal in France. In terms of work, working from home became a lot more prominent, and so working online, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, with many companies adopting hybrid work models, and French labor laws emphasize the right to disconnect, which allows employees to ignore work emails outside of office hours. In terms of learning too, the technology was very useful during the pandemic as online learning became essential. So tools like Zoom supported virtual classes. France has embraced telemedicine with apps like Doctolib allowing patients to book consultations and speak to doctors online. And there's also promotion of health technology, so watches for monitoring heart rate and steps. And you've also got blood pressure monitors, which can be connected to phones. In terms of buying things online, that's definitely possible. In France, Amazon is widely used, and other platforms like Cdiscount. Contactless payment methods are also increasingly common in France, which again is a way that on peut faciliter la vie quotidienne. In terms of entertainment, so le divertissement, streaming services like Netflix and Canal Plus offer French and international content, making it widely accessible. Transport and navigation is definitely possible with technology, so mobile apps can be used to navigate cities, but then we've also got mobile apps to find and book train tickets, bus tickets, and then e-scooters in some cities, and e-bikes can be rented via apps. For les maisons intelligentes, or la domotique, we're going to look at this in more detail on the next slide, but essentially, French homes, some French homes have technology which can help assist their lives. So we've got smart homes, so lights that can be controlled from phones, fridges controlled by phones, heating controlled by phones, and then we've also got there's an environmental impact, ecological impact of technology. So apps like Too Good To Go help to reduce food waste, which is a key issue in France. Finally, security and comfort. Home security is a priority, and people use smart cameras and alarm systems to keep their homes safe, and this is definitely something we see in France, just like the UK. In the description of this video, I've put a link to an article, and the article is about la domotique, which is essentially having a smart home, essentially. So please give the video a pause and read the article. It's in the description. If you don't read the article, the next slide will make sense, but it's always good to read the article because you can find words that you're not sure about, and you can just improve your vocabulary and your comprehension. But I'm going to summarize the article and just talk about it, and talk about la domotique en général. So, in the introduction, smart homes equipped with domotic technology. So, domotic is also an English word. Are transforming how we interact with our living spaces. They offer convenience, security, and energy efficiency, but face challenges like cost, complexity, and cybersecurity concerns. So, there's enhanced comfort and personalization. Smart homes allow seamless control of lighting, temperature, and appliances through voice commands or remote access. Systems like Nest or Alexa can adapt to users' habits, ensuring comfort while reducing energy consumption. There's also improved security. Connected devices enhance home security with features like real-time surveillance, smart locks, and motion detectors. we have brands such as Ring and Arlo, which enable remote monitoring and alerts while providing peace of mind even when away. Domestic systems help to optimize energy, and it could reduce energy consumption significantly with features like programmable thermostats and smart plugs to cut costs and support environmental goals. However, there are high initial costs when installing a smart home or making your home smart. It requires investment in hardware and regular updates. Maintenance and replacing outdated devices can also add to ongoing expenses. Sometimes it can also be complex when managing different protocols, so Wi-Fi and different systems. Despite emerging standards, limited device compatibility can frustrate users, especially those unfamiliar with smart home technology. Finally, there are cybersecurity risks involved when having a smart home. There are vulnerabilities to hacking, posing threats to privacy and safety. Personal data collection has also raised concerns, highlighting the need for strict regulations and frequent software updates to keep smart homes, safe from attackers. This next exercise is to see if you're paying attention and just to see if you're able to change sentences and practice your grammar. So the first sentence, the original sentence, l'internet est essentiel pour le travail à distance. You need to change it to negative. So just think of what this could be in the negative, then I'll give you the answer. So it's l'internet n'est pas essentiel pour le travail à distance, which is quite simple. Now change it to a question. So this one might be a bit more difficult. Give the video a pause and try and change it to a question. Then we've got here, est-ce que l'internet est essentiel pour le travail à distance? So is the internet essential for remote working? Now I'll give you the next two slides just to practice this again, to practice your skills. So read the sentence, give the video a pause, and have a look at trying to turn it into the passive voice, which the passive voice, if you don't know what it is, it's if I eat an apple, the passive voice would be the apple was eaten, or I took the train was taken, something like that. That's what you're looking for. And then once you've done that, try and change it to the past tense too. So either perfect or imperfect. I think I've just chosen one, but you can have a look in a second. So les amis peuvent être contactés grâce aux réseaux sociaux. So they can be contacted thanks to social media. And change it to the past tense. Let's see what I've got. So I've got the imperfect tense. Les réseaux sociaux permettaient de rester en contact avec des amis. And finally, the last sentence. So les cookies sur le site web peuvent recueillir des informations personnelles. Change this to the future tense and change it to negative. Once you've done that, just press play and I'll show you the answers. So in the future, les cookies sur le site web pourront. And then in the negative, it would be les cookies sur le site web ne peuvent pas recueillir des informations personnelles sans consentement. Oh, they've got an additional part at the end of that. But either way, it's ne pas. Now, we're looking at the last section of this topic, which is quel danger la cyber-société pose-t-elle? I've got some words on the screen, 10 words, and then 4 verbs. That can be useful, so I'm just going to read them out. I've put the gender too, because when you're learning words, it's always good to learn the gender of the word too, because when you're speaking French, of course, you need to know the gender. It's never just an isolated word. So, la cybercriminalité, cybercrime. Le harcèlement, harassment. Notice how it's le harcèlement, not l'harcèlement. Some words are like that, which is why it's good to learn the word in its full form, like le harcèlement. So harassment. L'addiction, which is feminine. We know it's feminine because words ending in sion are feminine. We've got l'isolement, so the isolation, which is masculine. Le piratage, again, most words ending in age are masculine, most. La fraude, fraud. La manipulation, manipulation, so sion. La désinformation, which is misinformation, feminine. Le vol d'identité, so identity theft, which is masculine. Then la surveillance. Now looking at the four verbs that we've got pirater, to hack, voler, to steal, but it also means to fly, manipuler, clearly to manipulate, and intimider, to intimidate. Now I've got a story created by my friend ChatGPT, and it just highlights les dangers d'Internet. It just highlights really some of the things we've been looking at in the previous slides. So the problems and dangers of being in la cyber-société. So I'm going to read it out. Please read along. Please read it out loud too. Give it a pause and read out loud. I'll move on to the next slide too. And if there are any words that you don't know, please pause the video, add it to your flashcards, add it to your lists of words that you don't know. It's good to increase your vocabulary. So, c'est une journée dans la cyber-société. Un matin, Elodie, une lycéenne passionnée par la technologie, s'est connectée à son réseau social préféré. En ouvrant son profil, elle a remarqué un message anonyme: Tu n'as pas ta place ici. Choquée, elle a réalisé qu'elle était victime de cyberintimidation. Malgré cette tristesse, elle a décidé de ne pas répondre, mais le harcèlement continuait chaque jour. Quelques semaines plus tard, Elodie a téléchargé une application gratuite pour retoucher ses photos. Cependant, elle ignorait que cette application collectait ses informations personnelles. Peu après, son compte bancaire a été piraté, une conséquence du vol d'identité. Sa mère, inquiète, a contacté la banque pour résoudre le problème, mais les dégâts étaient déjà faits. Now, moving on to the next part of the story. Entre-temps, son ami Lucas, passionné par les débats en ligne, a été influencé par des articles remplis de désinformation. Il partageait ces informations sans vérifier leur source, ce qui a semé la confusion parmi ses camarades de classe. Lucas, frustré, a découvert plus tard qu'il avait été manipulé par un réseau de piratage visant à propager des fausses nouvelles. Dans la soirée, Elodie a regardé un documentaire sur la surveillance numérique. Elle a appris que ses recherches en ligne étaient analysées par des algorithmes pour lui envoyer des publicités ciblées. Elle s'est sentie piégée dans un monde où la vie privée semblait ne plus exister. Okay, so this story is actually quite a sad story, but it just highlights the dangers of the internet. And again, there are many things in here, such as la manipulation, le vol d'identité. All of these things that we've been looking at before have just been shown in the story. So again, if there are any words in this story or any grammar that you're unsure about, leave a comment. I should be able to reply to that. And then also, please add new words to your list and your flashcards of vocabulary. Now, when you go into your exams, and especially the writing exam, once you've written your paragraphs, it's always important to spend a lot of time planning at the start and to spend a lot of time at the end going over your work, which is why I include these exercises, because it's very easy to make mistakes, especially in French and especially under the pressure of an exam. So I've put 3 sentences here. They've all got at least one error, and the task is for you to identify the error and to provide the correct sentence. You can do this in your head or write it down if you'd like. So looking at the first one. Les informations sur Internet n'est pas toujours fiable. So there's at least one error in here, and let's see what it is. So here's the right answer. Les informations sur Internet ne sont pas toujours fiables. So les informations is plural, so the verb must agree with the subject and use sont, and fiable must agree in gender and number. So fiable with an S. Moving on to the next part. Il faut que les jeunes protègent leurs données personnelles. Here's the right answer. Il faut que les jeunes protègent leurs données personnelles. So here, données is plural, so it requires an S. Now, you probably wouldn't have noticed the difference when it's spoken, but there is a written difference, which is why it's quite important to pay attention to these. Finally, elle a téléchargé une application dangereuse hier. The correct one is elle a téléchargé une application dangereuse hier. The difference is the past participle télécharger does not agree with the subject when used with avoir unless there's a direct object preceding the verb. Basically, what that means is when you're in the past tense, you say elle a regardé with just an e, elle a téléchargé with just an e. But if you're talking about, if you say elle a téléchargé une nouvelle application, she downloaded a new application. And then if you want to say that she liked it, you say elle l'a aimé, and the aimé would have an e at the end. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. It's a grammar note, but it's something quite important to learn. You'll probably learn about it in your class too, but you can always Google it. It's just about agreeing with avoir in the perfect tense when there's a direct object. But again, if you know that already, you're on the right track. Keep it up. And finally, to finish this video, I've given you 2 more translation exercises. As usual, please pause the video and give it a go. Write it out or do it in your head, but make sure you're doing it correctly. And as usual, in the description of the video, I'll put some suggested answers. Here is the English to French translation. Again, please give the video a pause and translate this. Remember your agreement, remember your grammars, your verb endings, etc. And I'll see you on the next slide. Merci beaucoup. We've finished another episode. You've reached topic 2 of AQA A-level French. These videos, I've mentioned before, they're to assist your revision. They're not a substitute for your lessons and your textbooks. But the goal of the videos is just to help have some additional revision resources and just something you can listen to, because reading all the time isn't always the best. So it's nice to have something to listen to, and some exercises if you just need some practice. I've got lots of translations, lots of exercises in these videos. Also, please give me some feedback in the comments. I would appreciate that, just to see the sort of things that people like or don't like. I'm probably going to stick to a similar structure for most of my future videos. But please do like this video, please subscribe, and I'll see you in another video.